We're recording.
Good evening. I would like to call the Monday, August the 30th, 2021 special board meeting for the Colleton County School District to order. Welcome fellow board members, staff, parents, and community members. Welcome to staff, parents, and those who are watching this recorded session at a later time. At this time, I ask that everyone stand first for the pledge, followed by the invocation by Reverend Jenkins.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Most gracious Father, we thank you for another privilege and another opportunity as we assemble here today for the purpose of trying to keep our kids in the safety zone as they matriculate here, dear God, in the Colleton County School District. We ask that you bless not only our students, but our staff, and our parents, our entire community, stand in need of a blessing during these perilous times. Dear God, we ask that you bless us as we conduct our business tonight, that it will be done in a godly, orderly way for the betterment of our children. We ask it in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Jenkins. Before we begin this evening, I'd like to address those with us tonight on a couple of items. I would like to note that this is not a political board standing before you. We serve our districts in the Colleton community with no political affiliation. We are regulated by the South Carolina Commission of Ethics, and we have but one agenda, and that is the education and the betterment of our children. I'd like to thank all of the parents who reached out to the board with concerns about this school year. We appreciate and value your perspective as it helps us to guide our decisions as we navigate educational governance during our world pandemic. Involved parents are our partners in education, and we thank you for your communication. Please contact us if there's something you'd like us to know that's going well. Contact us if there's something that is not going well. Contact us if there's something you would like us to change. But please know we do not work in your child's school. And your principal and your teacher are best to resolve issues and clarify changes. We welcome your involvement and know through this proper line of communication, you will create a stronger connection to those that directly affect your child's life. First on the agenda is public input. Ms. Sherrill, do we have any? Thank you. New business, Vaccine Incentive Program, Dr. Valerie Cave.
Good evening.
So I'd like to bring it to your attention that we've given a lot of thought into how we can incentivize our employees to be able to get the COVID vaccine. It's very important for us to move in that direction. One of the reasons being is that CDC has provided recommendations that there are 2 ways for us to be able to mitigate the virus, and that's for us to get the vaccine as well as to wear masks. My commitment continues to be to Colleton County that I'm very transparent, that I make sure that I provide as much effective communication to my staff, to my community, to the board, as well as that I maintain a commitment to make sure that I concentrate on academic improvement and that I make sure that I engage the community as often as possible. So thus brings me to our vaccination incentive plan for our staff. As the nation continues to deal with the spread of the COVID virus as well as the Delta variant, one thing is for sure, that the numbers continue to rise. They continue to rise in our schools, they continue to rise nationwide and worldwide. So therefore, I want to be able to incentivize my staff as well as my students in order to engage them in seeking the COVID vaccine. So for our regular and full-time, part-time, full-time staff as well as our part-time staff who are fully vaccinated and who choose to show proof of their vaccination, they're eligible for the incentive. Substitutes of temporary employees, hourly employees, or hourly employees are not eligible for the incentive. That's substitutes who are hourly employees are not eligible for the incentive. But employees who are full-time or part-time are eligible to receive the incentive. So with the help of our legal advice, we have outlined the eligibility requirements. You can draw your attention to the slide. They must be employed with the Colleton County School District in the fall of 2021. They must have received all required doses for full vaccination of the FDA administration fully approved use of the emergency use authorized COVID vaccine prior to October 15th. We're using October 15th as a deadline that allows us to have a full 2 months period almost for them to get the first vaccine as well as to get the second vaccine, so that everyone eligible everyone in the district can participate if they so desire. They must submit a signed staff consent and attestation form in order to receive the incentive no later than October 15th at 11 p.m. And that's the deadline to entry. And the form can be either sent by email or hand delivered, not by email. We made a change to that earlier, forgive me. They can either send it by district email, or they can mail it, or they can hand deliver it. And there's only one entry per staff member. And they must provide a copy of their authentic CDC vaccination card or some other proof of vaccination that's accepted by the school district. Today during our meeting, we did have some great conversation that we're establishing an email address so that they would be able to communicate that as well if they so desire. And then we're also providing, we'll roll out a flyer that will allow them to engage with the vaccine incentive so that they'll know more about it as I continue to work with our legal advice before we roll out all of that information. Our staff incentive right now for fully vaccinated employees, they'll receive $300, and then our part-time employees will receive $150. That's what they will net, $300 and $150. Now we continue to work with our students as well for incentive plan for them as well, because I would like for the students to be encouraged to get vaccinated as well. We're modeling many of our plans after some of the other plans that they're doing across the state of South Carolina as well as across the nation that have incentive plans for their students and staff. So we're offering the same thing for our students and the eligibility requirements for students, shown with the next slide, thank you. They must be enrolled in grade 12 or below in the Colleton County School District as a whole. They must have received at least one dose of the vaccine prior to approved from the FDA prior to October 15th. And then they must have submitted the parental consent and attestation form must be received no later than the same date, October 15th, that evening. And they can submit the form, either hand delivery at the school by mail, or they can put it in the district mail. And then they must show authentic proof of their vaccination card as well. Their incentive is a bit different. For students, it's going to be, for students 12 and up, they'll get gift cards of $20 for those. So that we will be able to make sure that we're able to serve all of the children in the district between the ages of 12 and up who get the vaccine. So that brings us to our vaccination program. I can stop here for any questions that you may have at that point, or we can wait to the end to entertain any questions after we talk about emergency implementation, which led us to our virtual.
Dr. Kate, the incentive funds are coming from ESSER?
The incentive funds for the staff are coming from ESSER. The incentive funds for the students are coming from a different fund, and that's a general fund.
Thank you.
I do think it would be wise for us to give our attorney an opportunity to explain to us the legal ramifications. And the reason why I say that is because there is a cohort of people, I guess you would say, that's out there that believes the contrary to what this incentive program is. So I'll start with this, Bert, if you don't mind. We're not mandating that anyone receive a vaccine. Am I right?
Correct. This is not a mandate. In fact, the forms state that. This is an incentive program, as Dr. Kate mentioned.
So I don't want anybody to think that we're making anybody get vaccinated. I think it's a absolutely wonderful thing to do. It's especially considering what our numbers look like as it relates to positive and quarantine cases that we're having in our district. And the best thing about it is it adheres to the law. We can do this. This is my first time actually hearing about this, but I really like it. And I think hopefully a lot of our employees and students are going to take advantage of this incentive program and get vaccinated, because we know the vaccine is a wonderful way to slow down the transmission of the COVID virus as well as the Delta variant.
Thank you. They can choose to participate or not. The forms are clear on that. So thank you very much for your support.
Do we know the approximate percentage that are vaccinated?
I knew you was asking me that question. That's okay. I think Nurse Manuel is here. Is she here already? Okay. She has lots of information that she will share, but she will share that piece of information now. It's okay. That's why they're here. They know the information better than me. Good evening, board members and stakeholders. So right now we have a total of 318 staff members that have volunteered their vaccine cards, and that number is up from the last April number that was given, which was 258. So that's about 30%, if I'm not correct. We're sure there are many others that are vaccinated in the district, but have not shown proof. So I think that when this goes out, we'll probably get many more that will show proof of their vaccination. Okay?
I think everybody, any other questions?
I have one.
Please.
Not a question, but a correction. On the slide, there was an error as it relates to student vaccination, and I believe that was just carried over from the form I had submitted to the superintendent. In the second bullet for the students, that slide states that the student must have received at least one dose. It's supposed to be both doses. If it's a 2-dose, it's full dosage. So if it's a 2-dose, they have to receive both. If it's a 1-dose, like Johnson & Johnson, they have to receive one. So that is a typographical error I just want to pick up. So that, in other words, the student requirement is the same as staff requirement.
So
Full dosage.
Thank you.
One more thing.
Yes, sir.
One more thing that just came to mind. We're not going to be, and I don't know, maybe Nurse Dingle can answer this. I'm not sure what's going to happen to the submitted images or copies of vaccination cards. We're not gonna like keep record of that. We just want to see them to record them.
Yeah, well, we have to be able to keep them in order to do the payout when we're recording, and then we won't keep them any longer after that. They'll be destroyed at some point.
That's what my question was going to be.
We had that major discussion today
Yeah.
at our meeting. Yes, we're make sure that they're safely transmitted to us
Right.
by either mail or hand delivery or U.S. mail. So district mail, U.S. mail, or hand delivery. And then we will record that information, wait for the payout, and then that information will be destroyed.
And I just found out, I don't know if board members knew this or not, I didn't realize how much of a commodity your vaccination card was. There are counterfeit vaccination cards out there also. I don't know if we're prepared to analyze that in any way or not.
It's to a degree.
I'm sorry?
It's to a degree that is that important because in a lot of places now, because there are duplicate cards that are being made, a lot of places they require you to have the signature of the location where you had it done due to counterfeit.
So we'll do some additional investigation before we get ready to launch it to make sure that we have authentic vaccination information and have a way to verify that.
Other questions for Dr. King?
Just to follow up on that, Dr. Gay. Now, the copies that they bring you, of course, you said we will destroy those once the verification is taken. So then you're asking for a copy or an authentic copy?
Well, we're asking for an authentic copy. We'll have to investigate how we get that, whether it's notarized or something. We'll have to make sure that it's authentic. So we can verify that for the payoff.
Right. But would you, and I'm going to ask this because I have to get this for traveling out of the country, would you accept the letters from the doctor that these statements are done?
Yes, that's in other form. Yes, sir. We most definitely will.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Dr. Kate, I think everyone is supportive of this vaccine incentive program, but I just want to make sure, is there a motion that this board supports the vaccine incentive program as presented this evening?
Do we need to do that? I make a motion that we accept maybe the correct name for it, Madam Chair. I do apologize. Give me 1 second. All right, I'll just call it what it's called on the agenda. If that's okay. I make a motion that we accept the vaccine incentive program introduced to the board by our Superintendent, Dr. Valerie Cave, on August 30th, 2021.
Second.
Motion has been made and very seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you very much, Dr. Cave.
Thank you.
We'll move forward with old business, and at this time, 4.01, consideration of suspension of the regular board meeting 2 reading requirement of policy adoption. If we can, I'd like to request that we table that unless there's action that's needed.
Which one is that, Madam Chair?
And move forward with the 4.02, consideration of implementation of emergency procedures and requirements related to face coverings, quarantine, and virtual learning due to the increase of COVID-19 cases. Correct.
Awesome.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion that we table 4.01, consideration of suspension of regular board meeting 2 reading requirement on policy adoption.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to table 4.01, consideration of suspension of the regular board meeting 2 reading requirement unless action is needed later this evening. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just to be clear, Madam Chair, why are we tabling that?
Well, I don't know of any action to be needed at this time, so I'm tabling it unless there's a motion later in the evening for action of the board. And
We don't have a policy to
correct, no policies are presented at this time.
Okay. We don't have one tonight.
Right. Any other questions? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. King.
Okay, we'll move on with the emergency implementation of virtual. I wanted to make sure that I provide you all of the updates and all of the information which led us to the point that we find ourselves in. So let's review the South Carolina Department of Education school guidance on school closures. Districts with the state board approval full-time virtual program are permitted to offer full-time virtual options for students up to 5%. Now, currently, Colleton County participates in a full-time virtual option with the Low Country Consortium, as well as we also have students in SC Virtual. So we are meeting that particular requirement with our students. We have about 39 students there, and then we have, I think, about 70-some students that are in SC Virtual at this point. So while we move to our emergency closing, there are several things that that you have to do in order to move to a virtual closing. The SCDE guidance, it's a mouthful, is very, very specific in terms of the things that you need to do in order to do an emergency closing. One thing is that you have to have a consultation with DHEC, which we have done, and have a consultation under the able-bodied nurse dangle. You have a consultation with them. We also took an in-depth look at our COVID numbers in terms of positive cases, in terms of quarantines, in terms of student and staff positives as well. We also looked at our ability to make sure that we're able to accommodate our students in terms of staffing, with teaching on a day-to-day basis, and we looked at whether or not we could safely transport our children back and forth to school. All of those indicators led us to our emergency closing at this point, which is perfectly allowable under the SCDE guidance. So on that particular day, when I realized that we were in a place of challenge, I reached out to Molly Spearman, our Superintendent Molly Spearman, as well as to our Deputy Superintendent David Mathis at the State Department, and consulted with them on the guidance that they would provide to me as a superintendent of Colleton County School District. They gave me the approval. We talked back and forth with different scenarios that we could do, and ultimately we were approved to move for our 2-week emergency closing, but making sure that our children had virtual learning and that instruction was going to be continuous. So I wanted to make sure you were aware that we were not in any violation of any proviso with that. We were approved to do emergency closing. At this point, I'd like for my staff to be able to give you all of the indicators that led us up to this point. Nurse Dangle will come up first and talk about our cases, and then after that, we will have an update from operations that talks about our food services, our cleaning and sanitation, as well as our bus driver situation, and then we'll round it up, end it up, and bring it to a closing with our curriculum updates on virtual learning and how our children are being engaged. And I'll come back for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Good evening again. I think you all have before you a spreadsheet that looks something like this. Okay, so I just want to go over those numbers. So the numbers that we see in front of you, I have identified as student positive, and it ranges from 8/16, which is our first day of school, up until today. And our total number of cases as of today at 12 o'clock was 130 positive cases. For our student quarantines for the 2 weeks, we have 1,003 students on quarantine. And our staff positives, that's on the back, we have 20. And staff positives are 20 and staff quarantines are 31. As you can see, I also broke down these charts by schools, which allotted the number of positives and quarantines per school and per school day. And if anyone has any questions, then please let me know.
Nurse Dingle, the guidance from DHEC on how we quarantine, is that something that we are communicating throughout the district and to parents the same? I mean, can you give us, what determines a quarantine?
Okay, so for students, anyone closer than 3 feet, so 0 to 3 feet within within an infected, close to an infected person, so 0 to 3 feet, they have to quarantine regardless of whether or not they wear a mask. So anyone that is 3 to 6 feet of an infected person and everyone is wearing their mask within that 3 to 6 feet, the only person that will be sent home or sent on isolation will be that person that tested positive or the infected person. With our staff, it's a 6 feet rule, and we go by that. And anyone within that 6 feet that was wearing a mask does not have to quarantine. But if they were not wearing their mask, they do have to quarantine. So with our mask mandate in place now, we're hoping that our number of quarantine students will decrease.
Terrific, I appreciate that explanation. For parents, if the students are 6 feet or more,
Yes, 6 feet or more.
Okay, and they're wearing a mask,
Right.
then they don't have to quarantine.
Right. That is in a nutshell. But the guidance did change last week.
I need to simplify it because I know it's very complicated. I appreciate that explanation.
And we also still look at it on a case-by-case basis. That is the guidance that we use to make the determination, but we still look at it individually as well, each case.
Nurse Ding, on the quarantine portion, if there's a person that is masked, but for whatever reason is at home, quarantine for it, what is the extension, what is the breakdown of the quarantine time?
So any student that is placed on quarantine must quarantine for 14 days. Even if they test negative while they're on quarantine, they still should remain out for those 14 days. So testing negative while on quarantine does not shorten their quarantine period to allow them to return.
Now, is that the CDC guideline or is that the guidelines we're following?
That is the guidelines of the district.
So though the CDC and others state that after 5 days, if there's no evidence or any proof or any symptoms, and they're still in quarantine after 5 days and they get a negative test, they're still not allowed to return to school.
The district is not allowing that. We have 14-day quarantine for all students.
I had, honestly, I had several, just like probably a lot of my colleagues had several of my constituents contact me about not only our mask mandate, but about this very same topic that we're talking about now. And had a couple of interesting questions. One being relative to vaccinated students and staff. One of my colleagues wanted to know, one of my constituents wanted to know if a student is or a staff is vaccinated and they have been discovered to have close contact with a positive case. How are we handling, or are we handling vaccinated student and staff members differently as it relates to quarantining?
So the answer to that would be no. The important thing to remember for parents and staff, we can't ask them for their vaccination card. If we identify them as a close contact and they have been vaccinated, then they need to volunteer that information to us. Once that information is volunteered to us and that student or that staff member is not having any symptoms, then they can remain at school. If they are symptomatic, then they have to go out based on quarantine guidance.
So the period between close contact and showing symptoms, what do we do with that staff member or student?
So to make sure I'm understanding your question. So if someone presents to us and they are symptomatic?
No. Well, not necessarily no, but I'm vaccinated, right? I have close contact with subject A on Monday, okay? I'm vaccinated. You call me on Tuesday and say, Mr. Bowman, you were discovered to have close contact with subject A who has tested positive. You had that contact on Monday, so we're going to need you to quarantine. I bring you, say, no, I don't want to quarantine because I'm vaccinated. I bring you Wednesday my vaccination card saying that I'm vaccinated. Do I need to quarantine after I show you that vaccination card?
No, once you show that vaccination card and you're not having any symptoms, you can return to work or
Okay, I start showing symptoms on Friday.
then you will now put you in isolation.
I never start showing symptoms, then I'm still,
Then you're okay to remain at work because it's recommended you test in 3 to 5 days regardless. Because you've been exposed to someone who's positive.
and as long as I test negative,
And you're okay. But if you tested positive, then of course you will send you home.
Yes.
Regardless of your vaccination status.
that is the question that my constituent had. They're like, why am I gonna have to quarantine if I've been vaccinated? And I told them, according to what I remember, according to CDC and DHEC, if you're vaccinated and not showing symptoms, you do not have to quarantine. That's correct.
That is correct, as long as you're not showing symptoms. But the issue that we have is that people they don't volunteer their card. So if you don't let us know your status and we don't know that you're vaccinated, so we have to go by our guidance, which is to place you in quarantine.
I hope our incentive program induced them to show their vaccination card. I see you laughing, Cliff. I hope it induced them to show their vaccination card after they might have been discovered in a close contact.
Understanding, all of those guidelines that you just mentioned, are they in black and white written down? Does every employee have access to those regulations?
Yes, they're part of the K through 12 guidance, and they should be on an attachment under our COVID section.
Okay.
And if we're
On the website, they are there. We're also adding a graphic that can explain it just a little bit better.
Okay.
Just a follow-up question. Because I think as Mr. Bowman and of course several of our colleagues have mentioned, we've got phone calls, texts, and other issues. We're being told my child's vaccinated. The issue with that is that our district's not being told. The student is in, let's say, 6 feet out of it, and it's been sent home because of having close contact of that sort. In the event they've been vaccinated and assigned with a negative test, they can return to school.
As long as they're vaccinated, they show us their proof, they're not having any symptoms, and they can remain in school.
I guess, as Mr. Bowman stated, was making, I believe part of his statement was to make sure that we can't ask you for it, but you're more than willing to volunteer.
That's
And
correct.
we would like that,
That is correct.
so that we can keep as many children in school as possible once we get back. Thank you.
One more question. Do we continue to test someone that's been in close contact even though they've been vaccinated?
So let me make sure I'm understanding. So someone that's vaccinated and has been close contact, as long as they don't have any symptoms, if they have symptoms, we will test them immediately. If they were asymptomatic, we will recommend that they get tested in 3 days, within that 3 to 5 day window, and then we'll go from there based on their test results. Did that answer this question?
So we don't continually test someone just because they've been in close contact.
No, that's not the current recommendations. It's usually immediately upon notification that you've been exposed. It changes. If you're not vaccinated, it's 5 days. So 5 to 7 if you're unvaccinated. If you're vaccinated, then 3 to 5.
I want to say something, I think, for clarity. And Bert, you can fix me on this if I need to be fixed. We're asking people, it's a voluntary process to present your vaccination card.
Yes.
We're not asking you for your vaccination card. Even because I can hear somebody out there saying, well, if you're not asking for vaccination cards, how are you going to implement your incentive program? You can go get vaccinated. If you want to participate in our incentive program, then you will voluntarily present that card. We're not telling you or asking you to present that card. Y'all understand what I'm saying? And I think that needs to be clarified.
Right, so the federal government issued guidance on this back on May 28th, and they determined that for purposes of incentive programs, the asking for the verification, whether it be the card or the doctor's statement, is not asking a medical question of that person that would violate ADA or any other federal laws.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to make sure that, because we have the media here, I wanted to make sure that that's clear.
And just a little follow-up on that one. But we're not asking you that you must present it. We're asking if you would in the event that you're in that position. But for those that are not in favor of vaccination, I'm asked, understand we have a policy that we're basing on the betterment of the entirety of our district. We have several. I have several friends, and people I know who spoke with. We all talk somebody. But we understand this is a very hot topic throughout the nation, especially in school districts, because we have so many people in one place at one time. But again, we're looking to make sure that we can educate as many children at one time in one place safely, which is the reason one of the incentive program, to give you a reason to want to volunteer some information. Again, it's volunteer. But the policies that we set in place and adopt, temporary in most cases, we pray and hope, is to help curb this so we continue to keep as many students in the classroom as possible so that we can educate them.
Any other questions, Mr. Anderson? I just want to say thank you for the explanation. I think you've done a great job, but I also want to refer our parents at all times. We recognize this is a very confusing situation. As Nurse Dingle just said, the guidance is changing. So always, if there's a question, rather than guessing, please go to our website. Know the information will be there. A little bit of a benefit of this pause is for everyone to get on the same page. So refer to the website for that guidance. Thank you, Mr. Dingle. Thank you.
And one more thing, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, taking the same ideology that our superintendent has presented publicly on several occasions, do you think we need to, I added up each school's positive rate as it relates to students and quarantine. Do you think we should, do you want us to present that too? I just quickly added them up. I know it's not a part of this document.
You're talking about the effective numbers?
Yeah.
You're talking about the quarantine numbers?
The positive numbers and the quarantine numbers.
Is there a need?
I see we have the totals for the district on the bottom of that chart, but we don't have the totals for each individual school. You understand what I'm saying?
If you look at the first line, that totals each school's number.
That first, like for instance, on this sheet right here, that 4, under August 16th, 2021, all of it now it says 4.
That's the 4.
That's for the district.
School, the numbers beside each school is what the numbers are for the day. And then that total at the bottom of 4 is the sum of those 9 schools. So we had 4 cases on the 16th in the whole district among our 9 schools.
Talking about the cumulative number for this entire period.
Oh, now why are we doing that?
I'm sorry?
That's that at the bottom, but I didn't do it by school. I did it by.
That's what I was asking board members to do.
Well, we have them here.
You just want to specify how many positive cases per school? If you've added
No,
those up?
I mean, I just added it up. I just thought I'd share the information the board members wanted. If they don't, you can take your time and
No,
look yourself.
we can add it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's here, so we can do it.
That presents me with another question. Nurse Dingle, this may be for Dr. K versus individual school. Is there a posting, not of persons, but numbers at each of our schools?
We have not posted by schools, we posted by district. Right. The total positives by student and staff, separate by student and staff. And that is on our website. And that's weekly.
We have not yet decided to do the by school information yet.
Thank you for all that you do. I know it's a lot added on for each one of you, and we are here to support and to do whatever we can. Just let you know that we do appreciate you for this time.
And thank you for the vaccine clinic on Thursday. It was wonderful. Yes.
Great job, Nurse Campbell.
Good evening, board members. As you're aware, we've been kind of sharing for the last few board meetings about staffing. And you know as well as I do, if we don't have staffing, it makes it very difficult for operations. We started the year off in almost all of our departments short-staffed. Probably no more shorter for bus drivers as well. That area was hit very hard last year. We lost 17 drivers over last year. Thanks to Mr. Bradley and his department, they were able to cut 11 routes, and then they added 9 more two-tier routes, which means that they are running an elementary route, then coming back running a middle and high school route. And they were able to tweak their routes and be able to add 9 more to try to take advantage of the staff that they had available and to be as efficient as possible. Unfortunately, we lost another bus driver the second week into school due to health reasons. We were able to hire 2 additional drivers at the beginning of the year, but those drivers are still in training. They're 30 to 40 days out before they can actually get on a route by themselves. So they're not able to assist and take up some of these vacancies that we have. So in knowing that, we knew we were going to be very, very tight in trying to maintain operations. And I will applaud my bus drivers and I'll applaud our transportation department, because the first week of school, knowing that we were already deficient with staff, did an outstanding job. They did an outstanding job making sure our students got to school on time and they got picked up and were delivered home in a timely manner. Our last bus was getting in on average at about 6 o'clock, all clear, which is pretty amazing knowing that we had a lot of two-tier buses running. We also knew with these tight situations, normal day-to-day absences were going to be difficult to be able to cover. We were maintaining that. We were figuring things out. But as we had COVID start hitting, we had more and more drivers who were having to be quarantined or isolated and having to be taken off their job responsibilities as a bus driver. So now you got your normal day-to-day, having to go to a doctor's appointment, sick child, adding on to also staff who had to be quarantined. It was very challenging and really impossible for transportation to be able to maintain operations. And that was one of the major factors that Dr. Cave had to take into consideration, was how we were going to get the students to school and home based on the amount of staff that we had available. We actually had to take a route off, a bus off the route, the week that we had to make this decision. That was not taken lightly. Mr. Bradley takes it very seriously to make sure he's having everybody home. But we had no other option. The only other option would have been able to run a triple route, which would have meant that some bus driver would have run their 2 routes, come back, pick up that load of students, and maybe get them there by 9:30, 10 o'clock that morning. So we felt it was better to take the route off and have parents notified and have them deliver their children to school if they could. So knowing that that wasn't going to get better over the next few days because we had more quarantine drivers, that was one of the deciding factors that Dr. Cave had to take into consideration, that can we continue operations with the amount of quarantine drivers that we had. And we had 5 at that time, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're already short-staffed and you're already doing all that you can, it makes it very difficult. So we just wanted to share that. I also want to share with you that we are across the board in staffing short in every department, and that includes substitutes. We're probably having the biggest challenge that we've ever had, and you're seeing this across the state as well, in a pool of substitute teachers. So when we have our teachers who are out with positive cases or having to be out for various reasons due to that, we're having a hard time being able to find substitutes. What we have to do, we have to go to other teachers in the school or other staff members in the school, pull them off of their duties and have them go in and help cover these classes. That's not ideal either. So that was another factor that we had to take into consideration when we're trying to make this decision as well. So we just wanted to give you an update on that, to kind of let you know where we were. We're hoping that this pause for 2 weeks will get everything kind of calmed down, get us caught up, also give us an opportunity to do more recruiting for our substitutes, for our bus drivers, trying to get them up to par as well, and just wanted to give you that information. As we're transitioning, now that we have made this decision, I just kind of give you an idea of what we're doing. We had meal pickup today at all of the locations for all students who would like to pick up a lunch. They could have gone to their child's school between 11 and 1 p.m. to pick up their lunch. We're asking them to do the same tomorrow. On Wednesday, if they are a bus rider, they've been riding the bus this year, their bus is going to be delivering a meal to their home. They're going to leave the elementary schools at 7 o'clock. They will hit their normal route that they normally do, and they'll be stopping at the student's house, and they will be able to come out and pick up their lunch and the breakfast for Wednesday and Thursday. They'll get 2 meals on that day. Then on Friday, they're going to do the same thing, except they'll have Friday's lunch and next Tuesday's lunch. Of course, we're not in school on Monday. That's a Labor Day. But they'll get Tuesday's lunch. And then the bus will go out next Wednesday again, or Wednesday, Thursday, and then it'll go out again on Friday to deliver Friday's meal. And hopefully that's only Friday's meal, that we're not extending into the following week. Right now it's only for a 2-week period. High school, middle school buses will leave at 8 o'clock from their school on the route. The only issue that we have right now that we want parents to be patient with us is we don't know an expected time to be at your child, when the bus is going to be at your child's house, because we're doing a different start time on their route. So we want to keep that in mind to parents, that they need to be anticipating that the bus is going to follow the route it normally follows. Nothing's changing there, so they can anticipate whatever time they normally get there on their route. It may be a little bit later than normal, but that's the order that the bus is going to come in, if that makes sense. All right? So that'll be on Wednesday, we'll be delivering for bus riders, and on Friday. On those 2 days as well, if they're a car rider or a student driver, they can go to their school and pick up their lunches as they're doing today and tomorrow. Okay? Our cafeteria staff and our bus drivers will be reporting to work even when they're not delivering meals. They're sanitizing their buses. They're going to sanitize their buses as they've been doing all year long. Once they come off the meal deliveries, they will electrostatic spray the buses. And then they're also doing deep cleaning, since they have time to be able to do that on their off days. So on Thursday, they'll be washing all the buses, cleaning the insides, and then they'll also be doing some training with Mr. Bradley. The food service people will all be working to pack out those lunches and there's breakfast for those days. So they'll be pretty tied up in making that happen. If there's parents out there that have concerns or having issues with meal deliveries, please contact your child's school. We'll take their name, we'll get it to student nutrition, and we'll find out what's going on, and we'll make sure that gets cleared up. But we just wanted to give you an understanding of some of the rationale of why we had to make some of the decisions we made, some of the tough things that we're dealing with from the staffing side, and then kind of show you how we're transitioning now that we are into this virtual mode of what we're doing for meal delivery. You have any questions for me?
I have a question about bus drivers, those that are quarantined. A bus driver sits in the front, and then the seat behind them is often left empty. So the distance from that bus driver to any student, is that always maintained masked at 6 feet? So presumably moving forward, all bus drivers will be safe as far as needing to be.
Absolutely, and right now, and Mr. Bradley was pretty pleased with this, when we even went back to having everybody back in school, our capacity on our buses has been very good, and we were able to maintain that behind the bus driver, so that's been good. As long as that capacity doesn't move up, then we have to look at other options on that. But right now, we're being able to do that, accommodate that.
What is the maximum capacity for bus? Is there a number that you play on?
They've lifted those, in the past, they had a limit on how many we could put onto the buses, but right now, that's no limit on that. But we're trying to be as safe as possible and spread the students out as much as possible, and to make sure that we are also keeping that distance behind the bus driver, as Ms. Wiggins said. And depending upon the size of the bus, we have different capacity buses out there from the state as well, some larger than others. Any other questions?
I don't know, Cliff, if this question will be better for you, but I'm glad to see Ms. Dingle is still here. Nurse Dingle is still here. Of course, it was great to see the South Carolina Department of Ed endorse masks being mandatory on buses. We had much discussion about that, and even though we independently took care of that as a board, it was good to see the support of the Department of Ed relative to that. However, I've had questions again asked to me, and I don't know the answer to this one. Relative to notification. When we have a student that is positive or is in quarantine, do we notify bus drivers that that student is positive or in quarantine? Now, I can definitely see the relevance. I can definitely see this as an issue to bus drivers. But that's the question. Do we notify them of positive in quarantine?
I know the answer, but I will let Nurse Dingle, the official person, tell us. I don't say something wrong.
Yes, we notify the bus office, and once the bus office is notified, we give them to their driver.
I'm sorry, Nurse Dingle, could you come and
Once we're made aware, we notify the bus office, and that's either two people that we talk to there generally, that's two of the dispatchers, or even Mr. Bradley, and we notify them, and he'll notify the bus driver.
Okay, so there's no reason why a bus driver should be picking up William Bowman, and he has tested positive and is in quarantine.
Right, we try to make sure that we alert them of what students have tested positive or placed in quarantine, so they don't have to stop at that route.
Unfortunately, I know some of my colleagues might have heard this also. I've heard that parents still send students to school even after they've tested positive. Now, considering that, I don't know what, 65% of our students are transported to school by bus, and that's a guess number. I'm probably really close in guessing that. Considering that large number of students are transported to our buildings from home, I can see why it would be very, very important for our bus drivers to be our first line of defense, if you will, for students, especially since we have some parents that would do such a unconscionable thing by sending a positive student to school. So it's good to hear that our bus drivers are notified of that. Thank you, Nurse Dingle.
Questions?
Statistic was, I appreciate that being shared, that 65% approximately of our students ride to and from school by the bus, so that just highlights the problem that having bus drivers out and the need for those bus drivers on a day-to-day basis is. So thank you for putting that together.
I guess that number, I guess that.
You did really good. Thank you.
Pretty good.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. Just wanted to give you an update on our transition to virtual learning as it relates to teaching and learning. And just wanted to let you know that during this time, our teachers are engaging our students in standards-based instruction per the district's curriculum guides and per the district's pacing guides. So we're continuing to follow those guides that we have for our students and for our teachers. Students that have internet access are receiving live instruction with Google Meet. And teachers are also utilizing Google Classroom to assign assignments and other activities as well. Students who do not have internet access are being provided a packet of instructional materials. So schools have been scheduling parents to come to the school and pick up those materials for our students that do not have internet access. Also wanted to let you know that Mary Jo Fox, our district's instructional technology facilitator, has published instructions on our school district's Twitter page to help parents in knowing how to log into Google Classroom. Also, schools have also placed this information on their Facebook pages, on their websites. They utilize Class Dojo, they email, so they have used all sorts of communication because this happened so quickly on Friday. So they have used all communication platforms to get that message out to parents. And because we have done this before, you know, the transition wasn't as, I guess, cumbersome as it could have been. So our parents last year, as you know, had access to Parent University, and we had some videos uploaded there as well. And we are working on updating those videos for parents to watch as well. As this is the first day of virtual learning, we are continuing to monitor and to adjust and to accommodate for the needs of our students and our families. And we've had calls from our parents that we are attending to and helping them to navigate this virtual option, as well as schools. And as you know, our schools are the first line of assistance for our parents, but we have also been working to help our parents as well. Also, to let you know that students who are out, like say for instance, if a student was on quarantine on Friday when the announcement was made that we would be transitioning to virtual learning, our schools have scheduled times for those parents to come and pick up devices and materials and other things that they need. And lastly, just wanted to let you know that we've also updated and published our virtual learning guidance documents for teachers and also for parents and students. And I think you have those documents as well. And I wanted to note that the C&I team worked very diligently on Friday into the evening. I think it was 7:30 or almost 8 o'clock before our team left, just trying to make sure that our teachers, our parents, our students had all of the information that they needed to make this transition very smooth.
Would you please?
Ms. Williams, I'm sorry, go ahead.
She left off the instructional support center. Would you please add that piece?
The instructional support center.
Yes. Instructional support.
Yes. So we have an instructional support center that will be that has been created for our staff children who may not have anyone to care for their children during this time. And it is an instructional learning center, so our students are engaged in learning. We have developed it where there's no more than 15 children per room at each school. We have those numbers. I didn't bring the numbers with me to let you know how many students we have at each school that's participating in this. But this is something that Dr. Kay was very. She wanted to make sure that our staff members' children were taken care of and that they had a place to learn during this transition time.
It was very important because their focus has to be on the children that are out in the community. So in order to make sure that they can focus on the children that they need to interact with on a daily basis, the need was there to make sure that I could accommodate their children if at all possible, especially if they were our students in our school.
Any questions that I might be able to answer for you? I think his microphone went out.
We just want to say thank you for everything. I know it was short notice. And got the information that was needed out to not only to the staff but to the children is very important, because I mean, if you're in a building and your mind is somewhere else, you can't perform to your best. So to take the opportunity to do that, we just want to thank you.
My question was, how would you assess, what's the assessment of day one of virtual learning?
The assessment of day one, when it comes to the number of students participating, or?
Go, how did day one go?
Well, if I had to give a general assessment, I guess, you assess by the number of calls and questions and different things that you've received. And we have received a few calls from parents, on how to log into Google Classroom, those types of things, but not a big volume. So I would summarize that our first day of virtual learning has gone pretty well. I haven't received any emails to the contrary from principals or administrators, so my summation would be that it went pretty well today.
Now this is obvious to me, but obviously it's not as obvious to some parents. So I will get you to address this.
Okay.
In our parent and student, what's this called?
Guidance document.
Parent and students virtual learning guidance document. I had a parent call me and ask me about one item in that document, and it speaks about parents should email the school's attendance clerk by 9 a.m. if the student is unable to attend daily instruction through Google Meets. What page is that on? I'm trying to look for a reference.
Yes, I see it. It's on the second page.
It's on the second, page 4.
Page 8. I mean, number 8.
It's on page 4. Page 4, section number 8. So the parent asked me, does that mean if I call the guidance office every day that my student will not have to participate in virtual instruction?
No, it doesn't.
Go ahead.
It's just keeping the school updated as to, if the child is okay. During this time, we have people that are going through lots of different hardships. And the reason for that is so that we can stay in constant communication with our parents. One of the things that we've asked our teachers to do is to communicate daily with their students, with their parents. So if a child doesn't show up, the teacher has been instructed to give that parent a call to see if that child is okay. So no, it does not mean that they are not required to.
And that's a perfect segue to what I was going to make a statement about. I want to make sure that all parents understand that our student code of conduct still applies as it relates to virtual instruction. Just because our students are at home doesn't mean that it gives them the latitude to conduct themselves in any fashion which they deem appropriate.
That's absolutely correct.
Our student code of conduct still applies, and we are still, our principals and we're still ready to, if need be, apply disciplinary procedures to students, as it, becomes necessary. And relative to what I just said, I want to make sure that parents also understand that attendance and truancy laws still apply as it relates to virtual instruction. You still have to have your student log on and be in class every day, because attendance will be taken, and hopefully none of our students become truant, but if it happens, then we'll take the necessary steps that we need to I just wanted to make sure that was understood.
Yes, thank you for emphasizing that, Mr. Bowman. And also in that parent expectations guidance document, on the third page, I think it's number 8 as well, there's essential PBIS practices for families. There's a link there, so that covers what you were talking about as far as our code of conduct, those kinds of things. We're expecting our students to, hold to those same expectations as if they were in face-to-face instruction.
Now, I know I'm going to have this question. I'm trying to cover all of our bases. While we're in a board meeting to make sure that we have a keen understanding of what we're trying to get done as it relates to offering instruction to our students. So the question is going to come up, so you mean just because my child is in class, does that mean my child have to wear a mask while they're in virtual instruction? And I think the answer to that is relative to their own individual homes.
Right.
We're not trying to regulate, the use of a mask while a child is in virtual instruction in their own homes. Right. So parents would have to regulate that according to the environment in which their children are in at their own houses.
That is correct. We do expect students to be dressed. We don't expect students to be in their pajamas.
Yes.
So I think that needs to be accentuated as well, that they are expected to be dressed.
Ms. Williams, are all the students, and all of our, this is a technology question as well, all students are already, all the laptops have been distributed?
Yes.
And how many students in our district do we know of that do not have internet access?
I cannot give you an accurate number on that. I really cannot.
We don't have a solid number on that.
I
We
understand.
tried last year to try to get a solid number, we never could.
We don't have accurate.
I understand. Do we know how many packets we have distributed?
I do not, but I will have that information from principals tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Blakely is going to come, we left him off by mistake, sorry, Mr. Blakely.
Good evening, how are you all tonight?
All right.
Okay, just want to give you a brief update on what we're doing with the buildings. I met today at 8 o'clock with all of my lead custodians. Just to reiterate what we're doing and how we're doing it, make sure we're following proper procedures. And we're doing some of the same things we've done before, cleaning doorknobs, light switches, desks, any hard surfaces, sanitizing the restrooms on an hourly basis at every location. The one thing we've done a little bit different this time is all the custodians will be working similar hours. So at every location you'll have 2 custodians that will come in the morning at 7 o'clock and then work till the 3 o'clock shift. The rest of the staff at the school will come in at 9 o'clock and work till the 5 o'clock hour. That gives them time to get the building re-sanitized after the teachers are gone from the building. So they've got a good handle on it, they all understand the instructions, they've got all the equipment that they need, and they will follow through, and I'll be following through behind them and making sure that they're doing exactly what our expectations are. Do you have any questions or concerns? Thank you very much.
Dr. Cave, I have one question before we move forward, just on our pause, and wanted to ask about student activities, including athletics and band, and how this pause affects them, and what the chances are if we have additional pause and the effects of those.
Student activities in terms of athletics and band, those have been paused along with all of the other activities. They will make adjustments to their schedules. They have notified the other students. The thing that we have to realize is that we're not the only ones that are on pause, so everyone else is having to adjust their schedules as well. Those games are not counted against them in terms of conference and those types of activities. But they have been put on pause. It is my hope that we will not have to go down this road again, but if we do, we'll have to make adjustments as we continue to move forward. Hopefully through this 2-week pause, we've been able to get some of the children well. We've been able to get some of the staff well. They can all return, and we can continue to move forward. I hope that answers your question.
It does, and I just want to say, I know our district knows this, but so many of our students look forward to the athletics, and it keeps them involved, it keeps them, it makes them better students. And so I just hope that if there's anything else that we can do, I know that last year we had, when some students were virtual, they were also able to document their attendance and their efforts of the school day. And so then looking forward, I just want to kind of be an advocate for those students. I know so many athletes are better learners when they're actively involved.
They are. So what they have been doing, our athletic department has done an amazing job in terms of engaging the children with exercise science, physical movement. So they've actually been doing some practicing like that because they all have the Google Chrome book. So they do some Google Meets where they all get together. So they have actually been able to engage in exercise, and the band as well, doing some practicing that way. Our band are innovative and creative with how he's able to engage the students. So we're continuing to engage them so we don't lose their interest. Unfortunately, this is just where we find ourselves. We'll try to do our very best to make sure that we don't go on another pause, hopefully.
Everybody, hang on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No, Madam Chair, I do want to make a statement, very, very brief. I want to really give some accolades to my colleagues. You know, in this time of really unrest as it relates to this pandemic and all the transmissions of this deadly virus, we as a board, we have really shown our community that we have the health and welfare and safety of our students paramount. You know, and that is a big deal because I know a lot of board members across the state, and not all boards have had the courage to face possible litigation, community adversity, community kickback in their own respective communities. So I want to just tell my colleagues that, you know, I'm really proud of how we as a board have taken the opportunity to govern the situation. You know, because a lot of boards didn't have the courage to do what we have done relative to masks, also relative to virtual instruction. And I just want to pat each one of you on the back, you know, and say that we have really did a good job in governing this situation.
Also, Madam Chair, I want to thank the superintendent and her staff for stepping up to the plate and making that tough decision and moving this district forward. Thank you. We do appreciate it as a board.
Thank you. Couldn't have done it without this capable staff. They're the best staff I've ever worked with.
And I think finally, if we have a board that's not divided and a staff that's working together, there's no objective that we cannot achieve.
Thank you. Any other comments? Also to our one-man office of communications who can't see me right now. Thanks, Tom. At this time, I'll entertain a motion that we enter the executive session. When returning to open session, action will be made by the board on items discussed during the executive session.
Madam Chairman, I make the motion we enter executive session for the purpose of 5.01, to receive legal advice for the legal advice relates to a pending, threatened, or potential claim of other matters covered by the attorney-client privilege related to the emergency virtual learning and face covering measures and requirements, South Carolina Code 3-4-782. And for the purpose of 5.02, to receive legal advice related to pursuing claims for damages associated with opioid litigation against the manufacturers, distributors, marketeers of opioids, and hiring of litigation counsel, South Carolina Code 3-4-782.
Motion has been made and seconded to enter into executive sessions for the reasons just stated. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. We're now in executive session. Thank you.